Well, tomorrow, at last, this divisive election will come to an end. We'll be able to put our political differences aside and come together in agreement on the fact that we hate one another more than we can possibly express. Because whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, in this country, there's one thing that unites us all. Somewhere, there's a politician who can transform our hopes and dreams into slogans and broken promises in order to gain power over us. So today, as we behold the majestic spectacle of American democracy degenerating into open civil war, I'd like to examine the effect this election season has had on ordinary Americans by taking a close-up look at one family, united in blood, but divided by politics. Meet the Smiths, from your town, my town, any town, USA. Pop Smith is a Donald Trump supporter. He used to work in the factory hereabouts until the trade deal with Mexico caused him to drink so heavily that he lost his job. Things only got worse for Pop when the Chinese started to manipulate currency and also put something in his beer that made it react badly to his prescription medicines. Technically, they weren't his prescription medicines, but someone had a prescription for them, and mixed with beer, they nearly made Pop comatose, and the Chinese were probably behind it. Today, Pop is proudly wearing a red baseball cap bearing the words, "Make America Great Again," and lying dead on the kitchen floor in a pool of blood that has leaked out of multiple butcher knife wounds to his torso. Which brings us to Mom Smith, who not only supports Hillary Clinton, but is still holding the bloody butcher knife and cursing at Pop, even though Pop is way past hearing her. Mom is sick and tired of women being held down by a glass ceiling and two bouncers who think she can't hold her liquor as well as any man. She feels it's time to think of her children, what's her name and whose it's, who are upstairs screaming like banshees because they don't have nice things like children whose parents work for a living. It takes a woman to do something about that, and if those two don't shut up, Mom is going to be the one to do it. Mom says she's voting for Hillary because Donald Trump doesn't like Mexicans, where she's always found a decent Mexican who will not only pick up the tab at closing time, but actually drive you home in the morning, assuming he can get his truck to start. Mom feels Trump's sexual abuse and bigotry just isn't who we are as a nation. It's only who we are as individuals. And Hillary Clinton has shown women how to take control of their own lives without taking any responsibility for their actions. And isn't that what women are all about? As for the kids, Billy and Sis, not their real names or genders, though who am I to judge? They just want a government strong enough and decent enough to send a patrol car to their house before Mom comes upstairs. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped, tipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
Hooray, hurrah, the Klavanless weekend has come to an end. And anything happening this week? Oh, yeah, the election. I forgot all about that. So we're looking at the polls. We're going to talk about Doctor Strange, which we all saw, yes. And we're going to discuss comic book movies in general, the superhero movies in general. But first, we've got to talk about the election, where we stand. If you notice, our set is a little different today because it's all been rearranged for our fantastic election coverage, where Ben and I are going to drink ourselves into complete incomprehensibility and then mutter obscene things until it's all over and we're carted home. So that should be an interesting evening. I'm really looking forward to that, and I've already begun the drinking in preparation. So that should affect the show. So where do things stand? Does Trump still have a chance to win? Well, interestingly enough, the two people whose polling I respect most both say yeah. You know, here is Nate Silver, who runs 538. Looking very much like Nate Silver as a pollster. I had never seen him before, but he looks exactly like the guy who would sit around studying each of these polls. He's talking to Clinton hack George Stephanopoulos, or as we call him, Suckanopoulos, and telling where he thinks the race stands.
So we show about a 3-point lead nationally for Clinton, and she's about a 2-to-1 favorite. The Electoral College math is actually less solid for Clinton than it was for Obama 4 years ago, where 4 years ago we had Obama in states totaling 320-some electoral votes. Clinton has about 270, so she's one state away from potentially losing the Electoral College. You'd rather be in her shoes than Donald Trump's, but it's not a terribly safe position.
Yeah, you give her about a 65.7 about chance to win. Now, this is the question I want to get to, though, because you say she has, according to your polling analysis, about a 3-point lead. That was about where President Obama was the Sunday before the election 4 years ago. Yet, and I want to put this up on the board right now, at that time you showed that he had an 85.1% chance of winning. So why the contrast right there?
So Clinton's a lot weaker in the Midwest, where 4 years ago President Obama was leading in Ohio by 4 points. Clinton's probably a couple of points behind there. Iowa, maybe the best poll in the country. The Des Moines Register poll showed her down 7 points in Iowa, a state she'll probably lose. So the demographics of Clinton don't actually work as well when you underperform among white non-college voters. That's a good
Even
group for
though
Donald
the
Trump.
national polling is about the same.
Even though, but it's contested in the Electoral College, and her Electoral College polling in the swing states is a little bit weaker than Obama's.
The interesting thing about Obama is, remember, there's this margin of error. If the margin of error is, just say 2%, that really means it's 4% because it's 2% either way. And Obama did better in the actual election by the margin of error. He went up 3% in the margin of error. So what Silver's saying is, if that works the other way around, which it very possibly could, Trump will win. And here is Henry Olsen, who is my favorite election watcher. We had him on the show once. Really a brilliant guy. He has spoken so passionately about what the Republican Party needed to do to make itself a mainstream party again. The Republican Party did not listen to Henry Olsen, and that is how we got Trump, because Trump is appealing to exactly the people Olsen said we had to appeal to. Here's what he says in today's National Review. A friend of mine just sent this to me about a minute ago, so I've only had a chance to go over it. It says, most national polls suggest that the race is over, with Clinton headed to a firm win. Of course, that's the mainstream media telling all Trump voters to stay home. And, you know, if you can't trust the mainstream media, who can you trust, right? But, says Henry Olsen, I disagree. I think it is likelier that she will win, which is what Nate Silver said. But she will do so very narrowly in both the Electoral College and in the popular vote. It won't take much improvement over my final projections for Trump to pull this out narrowly. And I think it is likelier that he wins than that Clinton wins by 3 or more. So he's saying it's going to be a nail-biter. That's basically what he's saying. And he goes on to talk about the fact that the people who are undecided and third party are largely people who would vote Republican. They're largely people who are in the Republican camp, and people tend to come home at the last minute. That's what they tend to do. The undecideds tend to come home, and the people who have told pollsters they're going to be third party have tended to come home. So he thinks that Trump has some momentum here, and it could and could take it out. He also goes on to say that he thinks the Senate, the Republicans will hold the Senate narrowly, 51-49, with obviously King and Sanders caucusing with the Democrats. And he thinks they will hold on to the House, which most people think, with the Republicans losing maybe about 10 seats, but still keeping their majority. So that's Henry Olsen. So both Henry Olsen and Nate Silver are saying this thing is not over. And we can tell this by the way people are reacting. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, is that this is a revelatory moment. When things get tight, when things get tense, people start to behave like themselves, like their real selves. It's really easy to stay cool and calm when things are cool and calm, but when things are getting tense, as they're getting tense now, people reveal themselves. So first we have James Comey. That's the big story. James Comey, remember, he had gone to Congress and he had said, we got new Clinton emails on Anthony Weiner's computer and on Huma Abedin's computer, so we're going to have to reopen the investigation. Now he's just made this statement.
Never mind.
So he kind of, if Comey has not damaged the reputation of the FBI by his leadership, I have to say the FBI has too good a reputation, because really, we talked about this last week as I was going off, that really what I think has happened is a civil war has broken out between the field agents. And this is true in the press a little bit too, except the reporters have not had a civil war, but the field agents, they want to do their job. They're cops. Cops want to bust bad guys. They don't care who the bad guy is. If they agree with the bad guy, he's still a bad guy. If they disagree with the bad guy, he's a bad guy. They just want to know who's breaking the law. That's what field agents do. There's obviously a war between the field agents and the higher-ups, including Comey, who are either under the gun from a corrupt Justice Department led by the blandly sinister Loretta Lynch, or they're colluding with her, one or the other. So the field agents are saying, and they're leaking. And of course, here's Trump's reaction to the abandonment of this investigation.
Hillary Clinton is the most corrupt person ever to seek the office of the presidency of the United States. The investigations into her crimes will go on for a long, long time. The rank and file special agents at the FBI won't let her get away with her terrible crimes, including the deletion of 33,000 emails after receiving a congressional subpoena. They forget about all of this. Right now, she is being protected by a rigged system. It's a totally rigged system. I've been saying it for a long time. You can't review 650,000 new emails in 8 days. You can't do it, folks. Hillary Clinton is guilty. She knows it. The FBI knows it. The people know it. And now it's up to the American people to deliver justice at the ballot box on November 8th.
So that's what Trump should be doing. I mean, you got to admit that Trump in these last weeks has been the candidate. If he had been this candidate all along, he would be up in the polls by 5% at least. I mean, I think that this is the candidate, the guy who doesn't go off on personal attacks, who doesn't get, boorish and start talking about, still fighting with Republicans over things they said about him. This is the guy. He's saying, you don't like what the FBI is doing, and who at this point could like what the FBI is doing, then convict. Convict her at the polls. It's a good message. John Podesta had his own message for the FBI. John Podesta, who, of course, has been exposed as a typical Democrat machine Paul and all the WikiLeaks emails. Here he is responding to Comey.
Tim Kaine yesterday in an interview said people within the FBI are actively working to try to help the Trump campaign. Do you believe the entire FBI announcement has both been a benefit to the Trump campaign and that there are forces in the FBI that are actively working against your candidacy?
Look, I think what Mr. Comey did, just 9 days ago was a mistake. I think it broke with precedent. I think it was criticized roundly by Democrats and Republicans, including two former deputy attorney generals who served with him in the Bush administration. I think it was a mistake. I think what
Is it a mistake that should lead to resignation? Is it a mistake that should lead to
I've never
resignation?
questioned his motivation. I've just said it was a mistake. It broke with precedent. There's a reason for that policy. It looked like that it was interfering in the election. I think the leaks that have been ongoing, which was what Tim was referring to, is worrisome. But I think the men and women of the FBI are doing a tremendous job out here across the country. But the leakers should shut up.
The leakers should shut up. And that would be okay. I would say, yes, the leakers should shut up. There's no way the FBI agent should be talking to the public about an ongoing investigation on the sly. But they kept their peace for so long, I have to believe that they've just had it. They just have had it with being suppressed from the top down. And when you're suppressed from the top down, when you do it against the Democrats, you're a leaker. When you do it against the Republicans, you're a whistleblower. So these guys are whistleblowers. They are trying to blow the whistle on what is happening in the FBI and how Hillary Clinton is getting a pass and how this investigation has indeed, to borrow the phrase of our fearless leader, Mr. Trump, that it has indeed been rigged. And so it's okay to tell the leakers to shut up if things are operating well. But in fact, if they're not operating well, if they're being suppressed, then they're going to leak. Leakers going to leak because they got to blow the whistle. The other story about Podesta, do we have time to do this before we leave? Yeah, I think we'll take the time to it. The other story about Podesta, I love this story, is in the WikiLeaks is an email. Now, let me just get it straight because there's a lot of crazy stuff about this on the internet. But here's the story. A performance artist, Marina Abramovic, wrote to Podesta's brother, Tony, and said, "Oh, are you coming to the spirit cooking dinner? I'm looking forward to the spirit cooking dinner. And is your brother John going to come along?" Tony forwards this to Podesta's email, which is how WikiLeaks hacks it, and addresses Podesta's wife, Mary, saying, "You going to come? Are you going to come to this spirit cooking thing?" So what is spirit cooking? Here is, if you're watching, you can see Marina Abramovic doing her spirit cooking performance art. This is a performance work called spirit cooking. And it has to do with using bodily fluids like breast milk and semen and cooking them, and somehow this is supposed to raise spirits. And it's been linked to Satanism on the internet. I didn't find any evidence that it actually is linked to Satanism. It just sounds like some kind of weird thing. I believe what she's doing in this picture is painting with pig's blood. So Podesta says, well, it doesn't matter what she was doing because I didn't go to this dinner, but the Daily Wire we have obtained secret footage of Podesta at this dinner, so here it is.
I love sitting at the children's table. Ah, it's another boy. Say you love Planned Parenthood.
Okay, that's disturbing. I'm not sure we should trust these people with it. I don't know what it is, just something unnerving. All right, we're going to talk more about this, but we've got to say goodbye to our friends on Facebook and YouTube. Come over to the Daily Wire, and you can hear the rest, but if you would just subscribe, you could see it all. You wouldn't have to bounce around like this, like some kind of nomadic no one without a home, without a family, without a life. Subscribe to the Daily Wire.